Hello, this is Corey Smith with my Web 2.0, the Horizon Report presentation. The summary, basically the article talked about a few things, the report talked about a few things, lack of time and training, which I think is going to be a common theme amongst everything we read in this class. Teachers are always going to feel like there's not enough time, there's not enough training to use it effectively for what I want. A lot of teachers are visionary, I think, and I think they have great ideas for it. There's just not enough time to implement it and enough training to get done what they want to get done. Again, lack of support. Depending on your administration and their priorities and where the school is. I have a friend who works for a school district in a rural area. It's very poor, very split racially, and they just had a new superintendent, new principal, basically an overhaul of the system, which is pretty small system, but they spent a whole year just trying to clean up discipline and attitude. I mean, they literally spent that whole time trying to clean all that up to make that district formidable, and they did it. But they didn't have the ability to go in and use this technology to do all these things early on. Not necessarily because of lack of support, but because what had happened previously, and these new people tried to come in and clean it up. So, depending on your administration and your situation, the lack of support could be there. Support could be there, or it may not be there. I think a big thing is high tech doesn't always equal results. They mentioned that just because you have all this technology doesn't mean your test scores are going to improve, or student behavior, or student attendance. When I lived in South Korea, most connected place in the world, broadband anywhere you can imagine, data on your phone anywhere you can imagine. They really didn't use it in school, and we always plugged them up there in some of the best educational systems in the world. They didn't always use technology, or rarely ever did they use technology. They had an old slow computer for me to use to run some PowerPoints to do speaking games, because I taught English as a foreign language for them to speak. That's all I had available, and it was hard some days to even play a CD because the computers were just so old. Just because you have high technology doesn't mean good things are going to happen. Discusses the dangers of Web 2.0 that we'll get into a little bit, and the Web 2.0 advantages and disadvantages. Can the digital divide be resolved? Yes, I think it can. Don't think it's going to happen until we resolve bias, cultural issues, and classism in our own societies and our own communities, which could take a very, very long time and seem impossible to some people. The community that I live in currently, or the community I live in currently here in Memphis, is basically what you'd call middle class. But we have crime now starting to buck up, and a few streets away, the attitude changes for the whole city. And Memphis is unique in that, right? You can go 4 or 5 blocks and be in $1 million homes, and then you go 4 or 5 more blocks and then you are in the ghetto. So with those things, the people in the impoverished neighborhoods, we know they don't have access to technology like people with money do. And where my school is located, I mentioned this in a previous video, we are a Title I school, 2,000 plus kids, but the house across the street, which might be 1,200 square feet from my school, 1,200 square feet now, costs $250,000 because the land is so prime. And we're surrounded by $1 million homes, but we're a Title I school because of the way we're zoned. And older teachers that work at my school comment on the differences between attitudes of students before the district merger happened compared to what we have now, and they're blown away. They used to have students who were literally rich. We're not talking about middle class students. I'm talking about students who had money, especially in the 90s when money was flowing in the United States. And these people were driven. Their parents were driven to succeed. These students were driven to succeed. And now we have students who are, some of them are on a lower end of middle class, so they're comfortable. And we have some kids who are just flat out poor. And the kids with all the money went to the other school there in the town when the merger happened between the districts. It's just, to me, it's cultural issues and priorities. I think priorities have to change. I don't think people in impoverished neighborhoods are necessarily concerned with using technology to better their lives or better themselves. When I worked in my very first school in Gleason, a very rural area, most people would just call it redneck heaven. And those people had no priorities at all other than to hunt, fish, and go to football on Friday night. That was it. And I grew up like that too, same way. My whole priority when I was a kid was go to the gym and hoop and go play whatever, go do sports, go play this, go hang out with my friends, and that was it. And nowadays, depending on where you're at, priorities are completely different. So until priorities change and we resolve these other things, I don't think the divide will be resolved, but I do think it can be resolved. Skill set students have to have. I think there's three major ones that some people may not consider skills, but I definitely consider them skills. Finding legitimate information. With all the fake or incomplete information out there, clickbait, you got to know when to stay away from that, what's useful, and I think that's a skill. Just because somebody wants you to click on something because they put an outrageous title up there so they can get ad revenue doesn't mean what you're about to read is legit or worth your time. Efficiency is another skill I think they should learn. Being able to effectively sit down at a computer, block all the other stuff out, and get done what you need to get done, I believe is a skill, and I think it's desperately needed from students today. I'm sure that when I first got to college, 2001 or so, the internet was hitting everywhere, so the community college had computers and everything, and wasn't a whole lot to waste time on then because certain things didn't exist. Now, there's so much time wasters out there for kids, so many things that they can just get lost in. So efficiency is important, and I also think they need to know when to put it down. When it becomes detrimental, they need to be able to recognize when it becomes detrimental to them and when they can just put it down and just go be a living, breathing human being without a screen in front of their face. The global economic impact on my personal internet use. I grew up where I had to drive 15 miles to get to my school, 12 miles to town for groceries, My parents still can't get decent internet without paying a couple $100 a month where they live. That's why my parents also can't turn on a computer. They have no idea. My mom does because she has to use one at work for email, but outside of that, she doesn't know what anything does. So when I moved overseas, even when I got to college, it was a pretty big deal. But when I moved overseas to Korea, where it was the most connected country in the world, the whole world opened to me. I think it allows you to see different views and perspectives now because you're connected to every corner of the world that you want to be. Even when I went on vacation in a remote tropical island once when we lived overseas in Palau, and there was an internet cafe, and even then, you could take and share pictures right there with people back home of stuff that, I have family members who would never in a million years, outside of being shipped off to war. I had uncles who were World War II veterans and Vietnam veterans who might have got shipped off, but outside of that, they would never even leave the state. I mean, I have some family members who don't even leave the county. So I can share things with them through the internet when I get home, maybe posted something or used something that they can see. So I think it does a great job. It also makes me more pessimistic and observational. If I'm going to buy something from overseas, I'm really going to do some research about the company, the people I'm getting it from. Is it legit? Is it fake? Makes me more observational as well, trying to figure out what I'm getting, checking out things. It just makes me more. I'm already an inquisitive person, so that helps me when I do that. Technology skills I need as much as possible. It's not that I'm bad with it. It's just I would like anything available to me that I think is going to be useful, which nowadays is just about anything. Had some Google training very briefly when I lived in Utah. We used to use it in that school district. We have a teacher in our school who uses social media to reach out to the students about assignments and reminders. Creates a separate teacher accounts, and I think he does a great job with that. And I think I'd like to know a little bit more about those things. Better groups communication. How to communicate with large groups on an efficiently and effective manner. I think that would be very important for me to learn. Outside of just simple email, need to figure out other things. I just don't use it now, so I don't have it. But I'd like to have those skills. And we have these big, beautiful Promethean boards in our school, but hardly no training. So I would love to have some Promethean board training and know how to use those things a little better. 21st century technology. We upgraded Wi-Fi all over campus this year. Still not enough. Our school is multiple buildings. One of our buildings was used back in the used in the 40s. When it was built, I'm not sure, but they upgraded it. And in my building I work in every day, primarily we have it's almost all language arts. So our internet's really good, up and running. I can sit down and run through an IEP or do something usually really quickly. But all over campus, not always the case. Some of the buildings at 215, when the students get out and all that hustle and bustle of the bodies in the rooms, the internet just shuts down for just a few minutes. The kids don't have access to our Wi-Fi; they're not allowed to get on. But it's just the moving of people. So to me, that can be a hassle because I do a lot of work at that time. I have planning towards the end of the day. So we got new updated PCs. We have some portable touch screens, which are awesome. You just plug your laptop into them. Big giant touch screen on wheels, and that can be used greatly. I know our functional skills classes use those a lot for all kinds of interactive things for students. Again, we're getting Promethean boards all the time. With Title I money is usually what we use it for. We don't have any tablets though, and I think because we're so large, you got to choose between computers or tablets. And in all reality, right now, I think our powers that be are determining that computers are more useful than tablets. The advantage of Web 2.0, there's infinite information out there. There's unbelievable collaboration we can use. There are different perspectives that can be seen because you're able to reach every corner of the world. Cultural exposure is unbelievable because, again, you can reach every corner of the world. There's cultural exposure when it comes to Web 2.0, and it's always available. It's just available 24 hours a day unless your internet or something goes out. And usually, there's always somewhere that you can do things. We had a power outage here in our town because we had a big storm the other day, and I lost power at my house for 4.5, 5 days. So we had no internet here, but not everywhere across town had it. So I could go to McDonald's or Taco Bell or Starbucks or wherever and use internet. And there's a lot of McDonald's that are open 24 hours a day. They don't care that you use it. So that's an advantage. It's always available to you when you need to do what you need to do. Of course, the disadvantages, we rely on it too much. I know when our internet went down one day this year at school that I couldn't do anything when it came to my IEPs. Nothing, because everything we do is online. Can't take roll, can't give grades, can't enter grades, can't do any of that because everything is online. And I've been in a place before where the email was on the intranet, which was still up and running pretty good when the internet went down. So you could still communicate with your colleagues via email, but we don't have that at my current job. So when everything goes down, because a lot of people use the web-based email rather than the client on the computer. So we just rely on it too much. Of course, the other disadvantages is the false information. We talked about that earlier. When you're getting information thrown at you and half of it or more could be false, that's just not a good thing at all. It's just not good at all. And then you're open for influence. I remember when I worked on the military base, and part of the discussion was the students in Germany on military bases there were being influenced by ISIS through video games. Kids were going online to play the shooter games, and guys from ISIS had infiltrated those networks and played games with them, and the whole time they're playing these games, the guys from ISIS are talking in their ear about influencing this and influencing that. And to me, that's very dangerous, along with all the other things that are dangerous. Social alienization. Some kids, and I see it in some of our students, they just completely break off, and they don't know how to deal with people. They don't know how to even be a person sometimes. So I think that's a big disadvantage. Inappropriate internet use by students. Fortunately, I have not had much dealing with this. Everywhere I've worked, we've had really good filters. Allows you to request sites that you would like, and somebody checks over that, and if they think that site's legit, then they'll add it to the list that you can do it. When we were in one-to-one laptops, the kids would get off task. That was not a big deal. And I had a student get set up one time. Some students, before filters were good, when I was student teaching actually, set him up with some inappropriate content. He was a sped kid. He didn't know any better, and he got in trouble. And of course, social media, outside of school. But outside of that, don't have much. There's my presentation. Hope you guys enjoy it. Sorry I rambled. Thank you.